Halfway through a 6-hour storm drive with $50,000 in gifts in my trunk, I stood outside my son's front door and heard him laugh at the idea of my death. Not loudly, not cruelly, just casually. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart and then heard what they say when they think you're not listening, stay with me. And before we begin, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I've learned something about silence that most women don't understand, and tonight, I'll show you exactly how everything changed less than an hour after that door stayed closed. My name is Helen Cartwright. I am 64 years old. 9 years ago, I buried my husband. 6 hours ago, I buried my illusions. The storm had started somewhere around mile 73. Sheets of rain hitting the windshield so hard I could barely see the dividing lines. Thunder rolling low and heavy like something dragging across the sky. I should have turned back. But mothers rarely turn back. In the trunk of my car were documents, carefully wrapped in matte navy paper with silver ribbon. Inside were structured stock transfers from my logistics company. $50,000 worth, not cash, not something flashy, something sustainable. Something I believed would help Ethan build security the right way. He was turning 36. He had said just weeks earlier, "Mom, I just want to feel stable, like I'm not waiting for life to start." I thought this was my way of giving him that. Sabrina had helped plan the small birthday gathering. Her tone had been warm over the phone. "Oh, Helen, nothing big, just us. Denise might stop by. It'll be intimate." Intimate. I arrived 2 hours late because of the storm. My coat was damp at the shoulders, my hair slightly undone from the wind. I remember thinking I should check my reflection in the car mirror before walking in. I didn't. That detail matters later. The porch light was on. Music inside, soft, ambient jazz, laughter, glasses clinking. I lifted the gift box from the backseat. It was heavier than it looked, or maybe that was my hands. I walked to the door, and just as I raised my hand to knock, I heard her. Sabrina, clear, crisp, unfiltered. I mean, honestly, if she never showed up tonight, the beach house would be hours sooner. There was a small pause, then Denise's voice low and amused. "Don't say that." But she was laughing, then Ethan, my son. He didn't protest, he didn't correct her. He laughed, not loud, not wicked, just entertained. "That storm out there is brutal," Sabrina continued. "Coastal curves are dangerous, people spin out all the time." Another glass clinked. I didn't move. I don't know how long I stood there. 10 seconds. 20. Time stretches when your heart is breaking quietly. Denise spoke again. "It's not about wishing anything, it's about being realistic. She's healthy now. But Helen could live another 20 years. Are you two going to wait that long to build your life?" Sabrina sighed. "That's what I'm saying, all that equity just sitting there. The beach property alone is worth, what, 1.3. And she still treats it like a museum." Ethan exhaled. "She's cautious. She's controlling," Sabrina corrected softly. Silence. And then Ethan said something that settled like ice in my chest. "She won't loosen up unless she feels pressure." Pressure. I had built a regional logistics company from a single delivery van and 2 contracts. I understood leverage, timing, risk. But nothing prepares you to hear your child discussing you as an obstacle. I looked down at the gift in my hands. $50,000, stability, support, love disguised as financial strategy. I thought about knocking anyway. Walking and smiling, pretending I heard nothing. Women are trained to do that. We are trained to preserve harmony at the expense of truth. But something inside me, something older than motherhood, whispered, "Don't." So I lowered my hand, carefully, quietly, and I stepped back. The wind pushed rain across the porch, misting my coat. I walked back to my car without making a sound. No drama, no confrontation, no tears. The gift stayed in the trunk. As I pulled away from the curb, my headlights cutting through the rain, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, clarity. There's a difference. The 6-hour drive home was silent except for the wipers. I replayed every detail of the past 4 years. The rent I had quietly covered when Ethan and Sabrina needed breathing room. The kitchen remodel I funded because Sabrina said, "We host so much, it reflects on us." The down payment I had almost agreed to last winter. The subtle questions about succession. The gentle inquiries about my will. I had mistaken curiosity for care. That's the dangerous part. When you are disciplined and self-contained, people assume you are unaware. But quiet does not mean blind. By the time I reached my driveway at 3:12 am, I wasn't shaking anymore. I parked the car, sat in the dark, and I made one decision: I would not argue. I would not remind them who owned what, I would not announce anything, I would simply adjust the structure. The next morning at 8 am, I called Martin Doyle. He answered on the second ring, his voice steady as always. Helen, I need to review every beneficiary designation, every access authorization, and the beach house deed. There was a brief pause. He didn't ask why. When can you come in? Today. By 10:30, I was sitting in his office, sunlight coming through tall windows, folders spread across the desk. Are we anticipating a dispute? Martin asked calmly. Yes, I said. Eventually, he nodded once. Then we move before the anticipation becomes reaction. That's why I trust him. We began with the rental payments. I had been covering a portion of Ethan's mortgage adjustment while he stabilized commission cycles. Those transfers would stop at the end of the month. Next, the beach house. I looked at the property map framed on Martin's wall. My late husband and I had purchased that land 22 years ago, paid it off in 9. Transfer it into an irrevocable trust, I said. For whom? I met his eyes. Not for family. His pen paused slightly, then continued. We discussed company shares. Ethan had limited visibility access, nothing major, but that would be revoked. Then Martin leaned back. Are you prepared for the reaction? Yes. Emotionally, I considered that. No, I said honestly. But structurally? He gave the smallest nod of approval. Here's what women don't always understand: emotion follows structure, not the other way around. By 1 p.m., documents were drafted, adjustments initiated, notifications queued. Less than an hour after I had stood outside that door, everything had already begun changing. They didn't know yet. They were probably still laughing, posting curated birthday photos, crafting captions about gratitude and family, but foundations had shifted. And when foundations shift quietly, buildings don't realize they're unstable until cracks appear. That evening, my phone lit up. Missed call, Ethan. Text, Mom, where were you? We waited. I stared at the screen. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him who owned what. I just replied, drive was difficult. We'll talk soon. Then I set the phone face down. Outside, the storm had passed. The air was strangely clear. I walked onto my terrace and looked toward the ocean. There is a moment in every woman's life when she realizes she has been confusing access with love. That night, I stopped confusing the two. But what Ethan and Sabrina did the following week, when they realized the payments had stopped, told me something even more disturbing than the laughter I heard at that door. And that is where everything truly began to unravel. The first crack didn't sound like an explosion. It sounded like a decline transaction. 3 days after the storm, I was reviewing quarterly freight contracts when my phone vibrated. Ethan. I let it ring twice before answering. Hi, Mom, he said too casually. Good morning. There was a small pause, papers rustling on his end. I could picture him pacing the condo living room, the one I had helped them secure. Hey, quick question. The mortgage adjustment didn't clear this week. I called the bank and they said the recurring transfer wasn't scheduled. That's correct, I replied. Silence. Not outrage, not yet, just recalculating. Oh, okay. Was that a mistake? No, I heard him swallow. Mom, we have auto drafts set up based on that support. I'm sure you do. Another pause. Sabrina's voice drifted faintly in the background. Is she fixing it? He covered the phone slightly. Hold on. Then back to me, his tone softer. Did something happen? Yes, I said calmly. Something did. What? I leaned back in my office chair, looking at the harbor beyond the glass. I realized I've been financing your lifestyle under the assumption it was temporary. It has not been temporary. That's not fair, he said quickly. I've been building momentum. You've been maintaining comfort. His breathing shifted. Is this about Saturday? He asked. Interesting, so he knew. I wasn't feeling well, I said evenly. Mom, we waited for you. Sabrina even made that lemon cake you like. Lemon cake, I almost smiled. I'm sure it was lovely. Are you upset? No, that unsettled him more than anger would have. Then why would you just cut support without warning? Because I heard you measure my life expectancy like a line item. Because I heard you laugh. Because I finally understood the business model, but I didn't say any of that. I'm not cutting support, I replied calmly. I'm ending it. There is a difference. He didn't respond immediately. You can't just flip a switch like that. Yes, I can. I heard Sabrina take the phone. Helen, she said brightly as if this were brunch logistics. We might have had a miscommunication. If there's something bothering you, let's talk it through. Ethan is under a lot of pressure right now. Pressure is not fatal, I said. She paused. You've always told us family supports each other. And I have. Generously, well then, but support is not permanent dependency. The sweetness in her tone thinned slightly. So what exactly are you saying? I'm saying this month's transfer was the last. A long silence. Denise's voice floated faintly in the background. What's happening? Sabrina covered the phone, whispered something, then came back colder. This feels punitive. No, I said. It's corrective. I ended the call before the conversation could escalate. When you are soft-spoken, people mistake it for negotiable. It is not. By that afternoon, I had confirmation from Martin Doyle that the beach house deed transfer was finalized. Irrevocable trust, beneficiaries redirected. Ethan would not inherit it, not now, not later, not ever. At 4:17 p.m., Ethan showed up at my office. Security called up. He seems upset. Let him up. He entered my office without knocking. His expression wasn't rage, it was disbelief. Mom, what are you doing? Working. You know what I mean. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He didn't sit. This is extreme, he said. If we did something to offend you, we can apologize. There it was, damage control. Offense implies surprise, I replied. His eyes flickered. What does that mean? It means I am not reacting emotionally, I am responding structurally. He stared at me. Is this because Sabrina said something you misunderstood? I met his gaze directly. Did she? Silence. Then he exhaled. We were joking. About coastal curves? His face drained. You heard? Yes. He ran a hand through his hair. Mom, it wasn't serious. You discussed asset values. That's normal. You discussed my timeline. He didn't deny it. People talk, he muttered. Yes, I said softly. They do. He finally sat down. Look, maybe Sabrina pushes sometimes, but that's just how she thinks. She sees opportunity. That doesn't mean we want you gone. You want acceleration? He didn't answer. You believe inheritance is eventual security, I continued. You have said that before. Well, isn't it? No, I said quietly. It's optional, that landed. You'd really cut us off over words. No, then what? Over mindset. He blinked. You think we're greedy? I think you are comfortable. That's not a crime. No. But entitlement corrodes character. He stood again, pacing. So what now? We just struggle? You build. We were building, with my capital. His jaw tightened. Dad would never do this. I held his gaze. Your father built contingency structures long before you ever discussed my mortality. He didn't understand that. He didn't know the full architecture yet, and I wasn't going to reveal it. Mom, he said finally, softer now. We counted on you. I know. That's what family does. No, I said gently. That's what leverage does. He stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. You've changed. No, I replied. I've clarified. He left without slamming the door. That's Ethan's way, conflict avoidant, uncomfortable with finality. By the end of the week, the second crack appeared. Sabrina's mother, Denise, called. Helen, darling, she began. I think this situation is being overcomplicated. I don't. You've always been generous. Why withdraw now? Because generosity without boundaries becomes expectation. Denise's tone cooled. You do realize Ethan has structured his life around certain assumptions. Yes, I said, and assumptions are risky investments. She sighed dramatically. Children need guidance, not subsidy. There was a sharp inhale on her end. You're being rigid. I am being consistent. She tried another angle. What happens if something happens to you unexpectedly? Shouldn't things be streamlined? They are. That unsettled her. What does that mean? It means everything is handled. She went quiet. They were beginning to sense something larger had shifted, but they didn't yet know how much. And here is the lesson I wish more women understood. When you remove financial scaffolding from people who were leaning on it, you don't create weakness. You reveal it. 2 weeks later, Ethan called again. Different tone. Mom, we might need to talk about the beach house. I said nothing. The locks were changed. Yes, you moved it into a trust. Yes, you didn't tell us. I didn't need to. His voice dropped. So that's it, we're out. You were never in. Silence. You're choosing charities over your own son? I am choosing principle. That's cold. No, I said softly. Cold is standing outside in a storm while your family discusses your expiration date. He had no answer for that. And as I ended that call, I realized something unsettling. They weren't panicking because of emotion. They were panicking because of access. But what happened next, when access truly disappeared, showed me just how fragile their perfect life really was. And that unraveling was only beginning. The first thing to collapse wasn't their finances. It was their image. And for someone like Sabrina, that is far more dangerous. 2 weeks after I stopped the transfers, I received something unexpected. Not a phone call. Not a confrontation, an invitation. Family brunch, just us. It came from Sabrina. The message was warm, curated, strategically gentle. Helen, we hate how tense things have felt. Let's reset. No pressure, no money talk. Just family. I stared at it for a long moment. No pressure. Pressure had been the word Ethan used. I agreed, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted information. There is a difference. The brunch was at a waterfront cafe Sabrina often tagged on social media. Clean white decor, ocean backdrop, very photographable. When I arrived, Sabrina stood up immediately. She hugged me, longer than usual. Her perfume was familiar, polished, expensive, chosen carefully. Oh, Helen, I've missed you. I've been here, I replied calmly. Ethan stood as well. His smile was thinner than usual. Sleep had not been generous to him lately. Denise was already seated. Of course she was. We ordered. There was small talk, harmless things, weather, work, travel plans. Then Sabrina reached for my hand. I think we all said things we didn't mean. I let her hold it for a moment. Which things? I asked. Her grip tightened slightly. You know, that night? I do. Ethan looked at his plate. We were drinking, he added quickly. You were calculating, I corrected softly. Denise leaned forward. Helen, families joke darkly sometimes. It doesn't mean anything. It meant something, I said evenly. It meant clarity. Sabrina smiled, but it was thinner now. We never wanted you gone. You wanted acceleration. Ethan shifted in his chair. You keep saying that word like it's criminal. It's not criminal, I said. It's revealing. Silence settled at the table. Sabrina tried another angle. You've always told Ethan to think strategically. Yes, so he did. That strategy included my death, she inhaled sharply. You're twisting this? No, I replied calmly. I'm interpreting it correctly. There is something unsettling about a woman who refuses to raise her voice. It removes the other person's ability to perform outrage. Denise changed direction. Helen, surely you understand generational transition. Assets need movement. It's inefficient to let wealth stagnate. I almost admired the boldness. Wealth does not stagnate, I said. It compounds. Ethan finally spoke directly. Mom, we built plans around eventual security, and I built my life around earned security. That's different? Yes. The waiter arrived with our food. None of them touched it. Sabrina's voice softened again. We've had to cut back a lot these past 2 weeks. That tends to happen when support ends. The condo is expensive, Ethan admitted. Yes, and the commissions haven't been consistent. Yes, I let the silence stretch. Because here is the truth. When you stop filling in financial gaps, reality becomes very loud. Sabrina's next words were careful. Maybe there's a middle ground, not full support, just transitional. There was transitional, I said calmly. It lasted 3 years. Her composure slipped for half a second. Denise noticed. Helen, you're being inflexible. No, I said, I'm being consistent. Ethan leaned forward, frustration rising now. So that's it. You just watch us struggle? I watch you adapt. That's cold. No, I said gently, it's adulthood. He sat back hard. Sabrina's jaw tightened. I've had to turn down brand collaborations because the condo isn't styled the way it used to be, she said quietly. There it was, the real pressure point. Image, you mean because upgrades stopped? I asked. She didn't answer. I took a sip of water. I built my company during a recession, I said. Your father and I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment for 5 years. We delayed comfort until it was earned. That was different, Ethan muttered. No, I said softly, it wasn't. The brunch ended without resolution. But as I stood to leave, Sabrina said something she didn't realize would matter later. We've had to explain a lot to people. I paused. About what? She forced a small smile. About lifestyle adjustments. I nodded. And in that moment, I understood something critical. This wasn't about money, it was about narrative. Later that evening, Martin Doyle called. You might want to know, he said calmly, there's been an inquiry. From whom? An attorney. On Ethan's behalf. I wasn't surprised. For what purpose? Exploring verbal expectation claims. I almost smiled. They think I promised inheritance. Yes, and there's no documentation, Martin replied. No contractual obligation, it's weak. Will they proceed? They may attempt pressure. Pressure again. Interesting how that word keeps circling. Prepare documentation, I said. But don't engage unless necessary. Understood. 2 days later, the second fracture appeared publicly. Sabrina posted a photo, not of brunch, of the beach house, an older photo, captioned. Some places feel like they were meant to be yours. Comments flooded in. Oh my gosh, are you moving there? Manifesting this for you, generational wealth queen. I stared at the screen. She was reframing. Positioning the property as eventual inevitability. Subtle, strategic. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Martin. He called within minutes. She's building expectation publicly. Yes. Do you want to respond? No. Silence unsettles performers more than rebuttal. 3 days later, the real shift happened. Ethan called late at night, not angry, not defensive, scared. Mom, we're behind. On what? Mortgage, utilities? You have income. It's not covering everything. Sabrina's voice echoed faintly in the background, sharp this time. We shouldn't have downsized that car, she snapped. He lowered his voice. She stressed. I imagine so. Mom, I didn't realize how much we were relying on you. I didn't answer immediately. Because this is the part women must understand. Sometimes people don't realize your value until your absence recalibrates their reality. I'm not your infrastructure, I said gently. I know, but you treated me like one. Silence. I thought it was normal, he admitted quietly. That's the problem. I could hear him breathing. Are we really cut out forever? Yes. A long pause. That's harsh. No, I said softly. It's clean. After that call, something shifted between them. Because when external funding disappears, internal cracks widen. Within a week, Denise stopped calling. Sabrina stopped posting aspirational beach captions. Ethan stopped arguing. And that is when the real unraveling began, not between me and them, but between the three of them. Because once money stops buffering tension, character shows. And what I learned about their marriage in the following month, it was more revealing than anything I heard at that door. And I wasn't the one who told them to collapse. I simply stopped holding them up. Money does something subtle inside a family. When it flows quietly, it smooths edges. When it stops, every sharp corner becomes visible. 3 weeks after the brunch, I received information I didn't ask for. It came through Martin. Ethan's condo is listed, he said calmly. For sale? Yes. I leaned back in my chair. That condo had been Sabrina's pride. White marble kitchen, imported light fixtures. A balcony she'd called coastal aspiration. Price reduction? I asked. Already? That was fast, which means the pressure wasn't theoretical anymore. It was immediate. That same afternoon, Ethan called. He didn't sound angry. He sounded exhausted. Mom, we're selling. I heard. Of course you did. There was no sarcasm in his tone, just resignation. It's temporary, he added quickly. Just until things stabilize? What needs stabilizing? I asked softly. He hesitated. Sabrina's brand deal slowed down. Why? Companies are being cautious. She's adjusting. Adjusting, I knew what that meant. Without visible luxury, aspirational influence loses traction. And aspirational influence had been subsidized by me. We underestimated how much overhead we were carrying, he admitted. That was the first honest sentence he'd spoken in weeks. Yes, I said. Silence lingered between us. You don't sound surprised, he added. I'm not. That bothered him. You could help us bridge this. I could, but you won't. No, a long pause. Why are you so calm? He asked quietly. Because I already mourned the version of you I thought I had, but I didn't say that. Because this is predictable? That unsettled him. 2 days later, something else shifted. Sabrina posted a video, no beach houses, no marble kitchens, a talking head clip. I think we need to normalize rebuilding, she said to the camera, eyes glossy. Sometimes you have to pivot when people you trusted change. Change, there it was, narrative framing. She didn't mention me, but she didn't need to. The comments filled in the blanks. Family betrayal is the worst. You deserve better support. Some parents weaponize money, weaponize interesting choice of language. I forwarded the video to Martin. Defamation, he asked. No, I replied. Projection? We didn't respond. Because here's a lesson most people miss. When someone tries to control the narrative publicly, they're usually losing control privately. 3 days after that video, Denise called. Not sweet this time, sharp. Helen, this has gone too far. In what way? They're struggling. Yes. Ethan is your son. Yes. You're proving Sabrina right. About what? That you value control over connection. I almost smiled. Denise, I value accountability. You've made them look unstable. I made no public statement. You cut them off. I ended voluntary support. You know very well they built their lifestyle around that, and that was unwise. Her voice hardened. You're enjoying this? No, I said calmly. I'm observing it. That silence infuriated her more than any insult could have. You've always been cold. No, I said gently. I've always been structured. She hung up. 2 weeks later, the condo sold, below asking price. Quick close, which means urgency, and urgency breeds tension. That tension surfaced publicly when Ethan showed up at my house unannounced. Not angry, not dramatic, deflated. He stood on my porch like someone who hadn't slept properly in days. Mom. I opened the door but didn't invite him in immediately. Yes, we're moving into a rental. I see. Smaller, that can be efficient. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Why are you like this? Like what? Detached? I am involved appropriately. He ran his hands over his face. We fight all the time now. With whom? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Sabrina thinks this is temporary, he continued. She says once you cool down, we'll reset. I'm not overheated. He exhaled sharply. She thinks you're trying to teach us a lesson. I am, at our expense, at your maturity. That landed. He looked toward the driveway. She says we should have pushed harder years ago, structured things earlier. Structured what? I asked quietly. He didn't respond, because he knew inheritance acceleration, asset leverage, control transfer. They weren't angry because I removed money. They were angry because I removed trajectory. You never promised us nothing, he said finally. I never promised you anything either. He swallowed. We thought it was understood. That was your assumption. He stepped closer. Do you ever regret it? Regret what? Building so much? The question surprised me. No, I said calmly. I regret underestimating how it would shape you. That hurt him. I could see it. You think I'm weak. I think you confused access with entitlement. He looked down. I didn't realize how much Sabrina built her identity around what we had. What you displayed, I corrected. He flinched slightly. She says we lost credibility. With whom? Her network. Influencer circles are fragile ecosystems. Without consistent luxury signals, positioning collapses. She blames you, he said quietly. That's predictable. And you're just fine? No, I said softly. I'm clear. There's a difference. He stood there for a long moment. I don't know how to fix this. It may not be fixable. Because of money? No, I said. Because of mindset. He nodded slowly. Then he asked something that told me everything had shifted. If I had never said those things, would this be different? Yes. That answer hurt him more than anger would have, because it removed excuse. He left without argument. And that night, for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt inevitability. When you remove artificial stability from a relationship built on expectation, you don't destroy it. You reveal whether it can stand. Within a month, the next fracture appeared. Not financial, personal. Sabrina stopped posting wedding photos. Then she stopped tagging Ethan. Then she posted a solo beach photo with the caption, "Growth sometimes requires separation." Separation. The word hadn't been spoken aloud in my presence yet. But I knew, because when comfort dissolves, compatibility is tested. And if the glue was access, then once access disappears, so does cohesion. Ethan called 3 nights later. This time his voice wasn't defensive. It wasn't manipulative. It was hollow. She's thinking about leaving. I didn't answer immediately. Mom, was it always this fragile? No, I said quietly. It was always this funded. Silence. I thought inheritance was security, he said. It was never security, I replied. It was projection. And here is the part most women need to hear. When you finance someone's lifestyle long enough, they may mistake your generosity for permanence. But permanence must be earned. And in the next chapter, when Sabrina made her decision public, even she didn't realize how much she had miscalculated. Because she believed leverage was early access. She forgot that leverage only works when the asset remains open. And I had already closed the gate. The announcement didn't come through Ethan. It came through Instagram. That tells you everything you need to know. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was reviewing contract renewals when Martin's name appeared on my screen. You may want to look at social media, he said calmly. That's rarely urgent, I replied. It might be strategically relevant. I opened the app. There she was, Sabrina, perfect lighting, soft beige sweater, slightly swollen eyes, caption. Sometimes loving someone means letting them grow without the weight of expectations. Ethan and I have decided to separate for now while we rediscover our individual paths. Separate, not divorce, separate. Ambiguity leaves doors open. The comments were immediate. So brave. Protect your peace. Some families suffocate growth. Families, interesting, there was no direct mention of me, but there didn't need to be. Narrative framing works best when it lets people fill in their own villains. I closed the app. How public? I asked Martin. Very. And Ethan? He has not posted. That told me more than the caption did. An hour later, Ethan called. He didn't open with hello. She posted it. Yes, you saw. Yes. She didn't tell me she was doing it today. Silence. She says we need space. What does that mean practically? I asked. She moved in with her mother, Denise. Of course, and you, short-term rental. There was a pause. Mom, I didn't think it would actually go this far. You didn't think the removal of financial structure would expose structural weakness. I know, I said. He exhaled. She says this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't cut support. She's incorrect. He didn't argue. She says stress changed me. Stress reveals, I corrected. Another silence. She says you wanted this. I leaned back in my chair. No, I said softly. I wanted clarity, and clarity is rarely comfortable. That evening, Denise called, not sharp this time, calculated. Helen, we need to talk woman to woman. I'm listening. This separation is painful. Sabrina is devastated. I imagine so. She built her life around partnership. She built her brand around optics. Denise inhaled. You are punishing them. No, I said calmly. I removed subsidies. You destabilized their marriage. I exposed its dependence. That silence lingered longer. You've always underestimated Sabrina, Denise added. No, I replied. I assessed her accurately. Denise's tone shifted. She has opportunities. She doesn't need this chaos. Then she will thrive. That unsettled her, because thriving without leverage is harder. You could end this with one transfer, she said quietly. Yes, and you won't. No, you're watching your son's life collapse. No, I said, I'm watching him build without scaffolding. She hung up. 3 days later, Ethan came to my office. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, internally. She wants mediation, he said. For what? Asset discussions. You have shared assets? Joint car, furniture. Some investment accounts? From your income? He hesitated. From support. There it was, I nodded. You will need a lawyer. I know, he looked at me. She says I should ask you to help with legal fees. No, I figured. He didn't argue. That was new. She says if we had structured inheritance earlier, none of this would have happened. She mistakes anticipation for security, I said calmly. He stared at the floor. I think she married momentum, he said quietly. And when momentum stopped, she recalculated. There it was, not cruelty, not even hatred, just recalculation. That realization seemed to land fully for the first time. Did you ever love her? I asked gently. Yes, he said immediately. And did she love you? He didn't answer right away. I think she loved trajectory, he said finally. That was growth, painful growth, but growth. 2 weeks passed. The separation intensified. Sabrina posted less frequently, then more frequently, then abruptly changed her branding tone from aspirational luxury to resilient storytelling. Starting over can be empowering. The reframe was impressive. But brands built on elevation struggle when rooted in downsizing. Meanwhile, Ethan stopped defending her publicly. He didn't post anything. Silence, which is often more honest than performance. One evening, Martin called again. You may want to know, he said, Sabrina attempted to contact one of your logistics partners. That caught my attention. For what purpose? Brand collaboration pitch. She implied family association. Ah, leverage attempt. Did they respond? I asked. They called me. I almost smiled. Please send formal notice clarifying no business affiliation, I said. Already done. Strategic distance is protection. That weekend, Ethan came by the house again. Not to argue, not to negotiate, to sit. We had tea on the patio. For a long time, he said nothing. Do you think she ever really believed in us? He asked eventually. Yes, I said. He looked surprised. Until belief required sacrifice. He nodded slowly. She says I lacked ambition. You lacked urgency, I corrected gently. I thought security was already coming. It was, I said. But not on your timeline, he exhaled. I feel stupid. That's a beginning. He almost smiled at that. You really aren't angry anymore, are you? No. What are you then? Resolved. That word seemed to anchor something inside him. She says you're cold. I'm consistent. Silence settled comfortably between us. Then he asked something I didn't expect. If I rebuild without expecting anything, does that matter? Yes, I said softly. To you, he nodded. That was the first time in months I saw something different in him. Not entitlement, not defensiveness, not calculation, uncertainty. And uncertainty is fertile ground. A week later, the official separation paperwork was filed. Temporary financial arrangements. Division of remaining shared assets. No spousal support. There wasn't enough income on either side to justify it. Sabrina posted one final message. Sometimes you outgrow environments that no longer align with your expansion. Expansion. The language was still strategic, but the glow had dimmed. And here is the lesson hidden beneath all of this. When a marriage is built on projected future wealth, the removal of that projection feels like betrayal. But projection is not foundation, and foundation reveals itself only when weight is applied. Ethan's weight came from losing Sabrina. Sabrina's weight came from losing trajectory. Denise's weight came from losing narrative advantage. And mine came from standing still, not reacting, not rescuing, not funding collapse. Just allowing gravity to work. But what happened next surprised even me. Because once Sabrina's recalculations settled, she made one more move. And this one wasn't public. It wasn't performative. It was strategic. And it landed directly at my door. The knock came at 8:12 p.m., not frantic. Not dramatic, measured, which meant intentional. I already knew who it was before I opened the door. Sabrina stood there alone, no Denise, no Ethan, no camera. She was dressed simply. No curated softness, no influencer polish, just neutral. Good evening, Helen. Her voice was steady. Good evening. I didn't invite her in immediately, she noticed. May we speak for how long? 10 minutes. Precise. I stepped aside. She entered my living room slowly, taking in the quiet, the same quiet she once called understated elegance. We sat across from each other. She didn't waste time. I miscalculated. Honesty, direct, interesting. In what way? I asked. I thought leverage could accelerate access. And it can't if the gate closes. There it was, acknowledgement, not apology yet, recognition. You underestimated me, I said softly. Yes, that's common, she almost smiled. I thought you were emotionally attached to preservation. I am, she tilted her head slightly. Then why cut your only son off completely? I didn't cut him off. You removed financial oxygen. Yes, silence. She studied me. You didn't rage, you didn't threaten, you didn't argue. No, you just restructured. Yes, her jaw tightened. That's more dangerous. Only to unstable systems. She exhaled slowly. Ethan is spiraling. He's adjusting. He thinks this is all his fault. It is partially, she blinked. You don't soften your language. I don't need to. There was a long pause, then she did something unexpected. She leaned forward. I didn't come to beg. I assumed. I came to propose, interesting choice of word. I'm listening. She folded her hands. You've always said wealth is strategy. Yes. Then let's speak strategically. I remained silent. You've built a regional logistics empire. Correct. You lack digital branding. That was not entirely inaccurate. We could rebuild partnership, she continued, voice calm, analytical now. Professional, not personal. I said nothing. Position me as strategic brand consultant for Cartwright Logistics. Reframe public perception, modernize digital presence, expand reach. She watched my reaction carefully. You would compensate me, she added. Contractually? Ah, so this was not reconciliation, it was reentry through business. You believe I would hire you, I said. I believe you understand asset optimization. And what asset do you believe you are? She didn't flinch. Visibility, silence stretched between us. You previously attempted to leverage my partners for collaboration, I said evenly. She didn't deny it. That was before. And now I understand boundaries. Interesting. You're offering me what? I asked calmly. Control. I almost laughed. You misunderstand. No, she said softly. You want controlled expansion. I can provide it. She was not emotional. She was negotiating. The influencer tone was gone. This was strategic, Sabrina. You're divorcing my son, I said. Yes. And you're proposing business partnership. Yes, that is bold. I prefer efficient. There it was, not greed, efficiency. We both know Ethan was not the strategist, she continued. He was comfort-oriented, I was projection-oriented. And projection failed, because foundation was external. Silence. You want financial recovery, I said plainly. Yes, through me, yes. After attempting to anticipate my death, her gaze held steady. Yes. There was no defensiveness, no dramatics, just acknowledgement. Why should I trust you? I asked. You shouldn't, honest again. You should contract me? She let that sit. Clear deliverables, defined compensation, no emotional access. She was reframing everything from daughter-in-law to vendor. You're very composed, I said. So are you. A beat passed. Is this Denise's idea? I asked. No, she doesn't know I'm here. Interesting, you're bypassing her. Yes, and Ethan, he doesn't know either. So this was personal strategy, not family narrative. You're aware this could permanently sever any future reconciliation, I said. She nodded. Yes. And you're willing to accept that? Yes. Silence again. This was no longer about money. It was about positioning. She had realized something critical. If she couldn't inherit access, she could attempt to earn proximity, but this time with contract. You think I respect strategy, I said. You do. I respect competence. She nodded once. I can demonstrate that. How? Pilot project, 60 days, performance metrics tied to conversion growth. She had prepared, of course she had. Why not pitch other firms? I asked. I have, and they require portfolio proof. And you lack it. I lack institutional credibility. There it was, she needed legitimacy. An association with Cartwright Logistics would provide that. You want my name, I said calmly. Yes, the room was very quiet. Tell me something, I said. If I had died that night, would you have executed the same strategy? She paused, then answered. Yes, that was the most honest thing she had said all evening. You don't pretend remorse, I observed. No, she replied. Remorse doesn't generate stability. That statement told me everything about her psychology. Do you regret what you said? I asked. She thought carefully. I regret underestimating you. Not the words, not the intent, the miscalculation. Interesting. And if I refuse, I asked, then I recalibrate elsewhere. Calm, unshaken. This wasn't desperation, this was repositioning. I stood, she followed. I will consider it, I said. She nodded. I'll send a formal proposal. Do that. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, she said quietly, Ethan never actually wanted you gone. He laughed. He followed. That distinction lingered in the air. Following is still choosing, I said. Yes, she opened the door. Thank you for hearing me. I always listen. She left without looking back, and as I closed the door, I realized something unsettling. Sabrina had matured faster than Ethan, not morally, strategically. And here's the life lesson buried in this chapter. Some people don't transform through guilt. They transform through failure. She didn't apologize because she felt bad. She recalculated because leverage failed. The question now wasn't whether she deserved access. The question was whether structured access could be useful. And that is a far more dangerous conversation than forgiveness, because forgiveness is emotional, partnership is contractual. And if I allowed her back in, it wouldn't be as family, It would be as leverage. The next move would determine whether I remain the asset or became the operator, and I don't lose control twice. The proposal arrived the next morning at 7:42 a.m. that told me two things. First, she hadn't hesitated. Second, she hadn't slept much. The document was clean, structured, surprisingly disciplined. Cartwright Logistics, digital brand expansion pilot 60 days, defined deliverables, performance-based compensation, no equity, no decision authority. She had done her homework. I forwarded it to Martin Doyle. He called within the hour. She's serious, he said. Yes. She's competent. Yes. Do you trust her? No. Good. Martin paused. But competence and trust are separate variables. I'm aware. He cleared his throat. If you proceed, structure everything, no ambiguity, no verbal assurances. I don't operate verbally, I said calmly. No, he agreed, you don't. That afternoon, I called Sabrina. Pilot approved, I said. With amendments? She didn't sound surprised. I assumed you would revise. Of course. We met at my office the following day, neutral territory, no kitchen tables, no emotional history, just conference glass and steel. She arrived prepared, no performative softness, no influencer tone. She presented clear data points, market positioning, competitor analysis. And I watched carefully, not her slides, her discipline. She didn't once mention family. She didn't attempt warmth. She didn't try to soften language. She spoke like a consultant. That mattered. When she finished, I asked one question. Why not rebuild independently? She didn't flinch. Time to credibility curve is shorter through established association. Honest again. You're aware this arrangement ends permanently if boundaries blur, I said. Yes. And that you will never regain personal access. Yes. She signed the contract without hesitation. And just like that, my former daughter-in-law became my vendor. That evening, Ethan called. He already knew. I heard. From whom? I asked. Sabrina. How did she sound? Professional. Yes, he exhaled slowly. So that's it for now. You trust her? No, he paused. Then why? Because leverage only works when structured. Silence. You're not trying to bring her back into the family, he asked. No, and not trying to help her? No. Then what? I'm evaluating performance. That unsettled him. She hurt you. Yes. And you're just business? Yes. There was a long pause. She always said you were the most dangerous kind of calm. I am calm. That's not what she meant. I almost smiled. 2 weeks into the pilot, something shifted, not in revenue yet, in visibility. Sabrina executed precisely, reframed the company website, modernized messaging, created executive positioning profiles, including mine. When she asked for a photo shoot, I declined glamour. She adjusted immediately, professional. Minimal, no ego. That impressed me more than anything. At week 3, conversion metrics began rising. Small increase but measurable, Martin noticed. She's effective, he said. Yes, and she's careful? Yes. Meanwhile, Ethan's life continued shrinking. His brokerage downsized, commissions slowed. He rented a modest apartment. For the first time in years, he was fully self-funded and unstable. One evening he came by, no anger, no entitlement, just quiet fatigue. You look different, he said. How's lighter? I am. He hesitated. She's doing well with you. She's performing well. That hurts, he admitted. Why? Because I see what she's capable of when she's disciplined. And I wasn't. Silence. Mom, he said carefully, if I wanted to rebuild properly, not expecting anything, would you even believe it? Belief isn't the issue, I replied. What is? Consistency, he nodded slowly. I depended on eventual security, he said. Yes. I thought inheritance was a cushion. It was never yours to budget. That landed. I'm starting to understand that, he said quietly. That was the first time I believed him. Back at the office, Sabrina remained precise. She never stayed late unnecessarily, never crossed conversational lines, never asked about Ethan. She submitted performance reports weekly, professional. Controlled. At week 5, revenue increase became undeniable, not dramatic but real. She requested a meeting. In person, she specified. We sat again across the glass conference table. I want to discuss extension, she said calmly. Based on metrics, I asked. Yes. She slid the report forward. Growth was clear. She had delivered. What do you want? I asked. 6-month contract, increased scope. No equity, interesting, you still don't seek ownership? I asked. She met my eyes. I learned that ownership without foundation collapses. That was growth, strategic growth. Why no equity? I pressed. Because equity creates emotional leverage. And you don't want that? No, she paused. I don't mistake access for permanence anymore. That sentence told me everything. She had recalibrated her philosophy. We extended the contract, strictly defined. Compensation tied to performance, nothing more. 2 days later, Denise called. Her tone was different, less sharp, less entitled. I hear you've hired Sabrina. Yes, that must be interesting. It's efficient. She hesitated. You always win quietly. I don't compete emotionally, she sighed. I misjudged you? Yes. That was as close to concession as Denise would ever come. Then she added something unexpected. Ethan misses you. I know. Will you forgive him? I'm not angry. That's not the same. No, I agreed. It's not. Time passed. By week 8, the pilot concluded successfully. Sabrina exceeded benchmarks, but something else had shifted too. She no longer positioned herself around my assets. She positioned herself around her own deliverables. And that's the difference between entitlement and evolution. One evening after final review, she paused before leaving my office. May I ask something personal? She said. Briefly, if you hadn't heard that night, would any of this have changed? I considered carefully. No, she frowned slightly. You would have cut support anyway? Yes. Why? Because sustainability requires maturity. She absorbed that. You forced growth, she said quietly. No, I corrected. I removed insulation. She nodded, then she surprised me. I don't hate you. I never required that. She almost smiled. You're not the villain I framed? I never was. She left without drama, and for the first time I didn't feel resentment toward her. Not trust, not affection, but respect. Meanwhile, Ethan continued rebuilding, no shortcuts. No safety net. He took on harder listings, longer hours, less comfort, more effort. And slowly he began standing without leaning, but something was still unfinished, because performance and rebuilding are external shifts. The deeper fracture remained, between a mother and a son, and in the next, a conversation would happen that neither of us could avoid. Not about money, not about contracts, but about the one thing neither strategy nor structure can repair automatically. Trust, and once broken, trust doesn't return with transfers, it returns with transformation, or not at all. 6 months after the storm, 6 months after the laughter at the door, 6 months after I closed the gate, Ethan asked to see me. Not at my office, not at a cafe, at the beach house. I agreed. That mattered. The beach house was no longer an emotional location. It was a protected asset, an irrevocable trust, a symbol of finality. When he arrived, he didn't comment on the new security system. He didn't ask about ownership. He stood on the terrace quietly looking at the water. You changed the outdoor furniture, he said. Yes. It looks lighter. It is. We sat, no tea this time, no props, just space. I've been working nonstop, he said after a while. I know how real estate numbers circulate. He almost smiled. I closed 2 mid-tier listings last month, no help, no introductions. No safety net, that's good. It felt different. How real? Silence. He didn't rush, that was new. Mom, he said finally, I don't want money. I know. I don't want inheritance. I know. I want clarity. You have it. He nodded. I used to think security was external, he continued. Eventually guaranteed, waiting. Yes. I built my identity around that waiting. I didn't interrupt. And when you removed it, I collapsed. Yes, I blamed you. Yes, I blamed Sabrina. Yes, I blamed stress. Yes, he exhaled. But it was me. That was the first time he said it without qualification. That's growth, I said quietly. He stared at the ocean. I laughed that night. Yes, I didn't mean it. You still did it. I know. The wind shifted slightly. I keep replaying it, he admitted. Trying to understand why I didn't stop her. You liked the projection? He didn't deny it. I thought it was harmless to imagine. Imagining someone's death as a timeline strategy is not harmless. He swallowed. I see that now. I watched him carefully, no defensiveness, no softening, just acknowledgement. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. That's wise. But I need to know something. What? Is there any version of the future where we have a relationship again? That was the real question. Not about assets, not about contracts, about access. I didn't answer immediately, because this is where most women undo their boundaries. We confuse remorse with repair. They are separate processes, I said finally. What are regret and trust? He nodded slowly. So what does repair look like? Consistency. For how long? As long as it takes. That's vague. Yes, he smiled faintly. You've always been like this. Yes, silence again. He stood and walked toward the edge of the terrace. I rented a small place, he said. Nothing impressive, but I pay it myself. That matters. I cook now. That's efficient. I don't chase luxury listings anymore. Why, I was chasing image. Yes, he turned back toward me. I don't want to be that person. Then don't. It sounds simple, it isn't. He walked back and sat down. I don't blame Sabrina anymore. That's healthy. She didn't invent the mindset. I already believed it. Yes, she just accelerated it. And I decelerated it. He laughed softly. You always win. I don't win, I said calmly. I endure. There is a difference. He looked at me carefully. You really moved the house into a trust permanently? Yes, and I can't change that? No, even if things improve? Yes, that hurt him, but he nodded. I understand. Good, because this is the final lesson. Love does not reverse structural decisions. Love adapts around them. He hesitated. Can I ask something difficult? Yes. If Dad were here, would this have happened? I considered carefully. Yes. He looked surprised. He structured everything long before you understood inheritance, I said. He believed in earned progression. I used to think you were the strict one. I am. He smiled faintly. Do you miss me? That question was not strategic. It was human. Yes, I said. He inhaled sharply. But I don't miss who you were becoming. That landed deeply. I don't either, he said quietly. We sat in silence, not tense, not warm, just honest. After a while, he stood. I'm not asking for access. Good. I'm asking for the chance to rebuild slowly. That's acceptable, without expectations. Necessary, he nodded, then he said something I didn't expect. I'm proud of you. For what? For not folding. That meant more than apology. He left without hugging me. And that mattered too. We didn't rush intimacy. We allowed distance. Distance can be respectful. In the weeks that followed, something subtle changed. Ethan didn't call for advice about money. He didn't mention property. He asked about work. He asked about my health. He visited occasionally, not frequently, not dramatically. Consistently, Sabrina's contract concluded professionally. She secured 2 other regional clients using performance metrics from my company as proof. She never asked for equity again. She never attempted emotional reentry. We became what we always should have been, separate. Denise stopped calling entirely. Martin once said to me over lunch, you navigated this without spectacle. Yes, most wouldn't, most react. And you, I restructure, he smiled. You protected the only thing that matters. What's that? Autonomy. He was right. I didn't protect money, I protected autonomy. And here's the truth I want every woman watching this to understand. You can love your children deeply without financing their immaturity. You can forgive without reopening access. You can support growth without subsidizing stagnation. And you can close gates without closing your heart. The beach house remains in trust. The company remains fully mine. My estate plan remains unchanged. Ethan will receive what the law requires, nothing more, but here is the part no one expected. He no longer wants more. Because the greatest inheritance I can give him now is not wealth, it's self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency cannot be transferred, it must be built. That night at the door broke something, but it also revealed something. And sometimes revelation is more valuable than preservation. I lost the illusion of unconditional gratitude. I lost the fantasy of inherited loyalty, but I gained clarity, and clarity is worth more than comfort. The storm that night didn't take my life, it took my naivety, and that was the most expensive gift of all.